Welcome to Heroes of Might and Magic 1, a strategic quest. So this is the first game in the well-known Heroes of Might and Magic series. And I will be playing through it, and this will be actually a blind playthrough because I've never played this game before, and I've not even watched anyone else play the game. I did play some of the scenarios, just to see how it worked, and it seems to be working fairly okay, so that's pretty much all there is to it, and I'll be playing through the entire campaign. Apparently there are 4 options for the campaign, and I will be going with the canonical story-wise one. But in this video I wanted more to talk about the story of the game, both the story of its background and the story within the game itself. So let's start with the background story. So this game was released in 1995, but actually it was an indirect sequel to another game called King's Bounty that was released by Debbie van Caneghem in 1990. So that was about the time when Might and Magic 2 Gates to Another World was released. And you can easily tell that by looking at the graphics, because it looked pretty much exactly like Might and Magic 2. But there were a lot of elements from that game that entered into the main Heroes of Might and Magic series. Starting with the whole battle system, like combat spells, adventure map spells, the concept of heroes, although in that game you only play as one hero, you don't own a kingdom or something. And also there were artifacts there, as well as the whole concept of obelisk puzzles, which is interesting because the whole concept also then entered Might and Magic RPG series as well. So yeah, and the whole strategy spin-off actually happened, as it was said by Debbie van Caneghem in one of the interviews, because of his wife. Because Debbie van Caneghem was working on the Might and Magic series, the RPGs, but his wife wasn't quite as interested in RPGs as she was interested in strategy games. So she asked Debbie van Caneghem to try and create a new game that was a strategy one. And I think that was the point when he came up with the King's Bounty one. And then, just so that the spin-off series would become more well-known in the world, he made Heroes of Might and Magic 1. Basically, the whole Might and Magic part of the game's title was just a cash grab, basically. At the time, of course, Might and Magic games, the RPGs, were well known, and nobody had known of the King's Bounty series. So the original plan was actually to call it just Heroes 1, a strategic quest, but they added the title just to generate more interest. And little did they know that the spin-off series would eventually completely overshadow the main RPG series. So that's interesting. Alright, so now let's go over the story of the game itself. And of course, just like all old games, most of the story of the game is actually written in the manual for the game. So let's go look into the manual. Now, interestingly enough, the manual itself contains quite a lot of information, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to follow that. So I compiled maps of what is said in the manual, so you would be able to follow it more closely, and I will put the maps on screen once I get to the relevant part of the story here. Now, as a context, you need to remember that there were things that happened in the very first Might and Magic game, Might and Magic Secret of the Inner Sanctum. And in that game there was a person called Lord Ironfist. And the story of this game is actually directly related to Secret of the Inner Sanctum. That's pretty much how the game developers tried to tie in both of the series together to justify the title of the game. So let's start reading from this. The manual includes letters from Lord Ironfist, but this isn't the same Lord Ironfist as in Secret of the Inner Sanctum, but rather this appears to be one of his descendants. And the full name of that person writing the letters is Morglin Ironfist. And the Ironfist name will become quite well known once we go through the games. So let's start with his letters. Letters from Lord Ironfist. 23rd day of the month of the Raven. Common year 632. To my great and munificent lord, King Ragnar, from his loyal cousin, Lord Ironfist, greetings. It has been 30 days since I crossed through the mysterious gate which opened in the VARN hills, and thus found myself in this strange and uncharted land. I wish my dear lord and cousin, through this missive, to dispel the ugly rumors about me, which I fear you might believe. Also note here, VARN hills. VARN is the name of the whole world in Might and Magic 1 Secret of the Inner Sanctum, so that's not a reference. I was deeply shocked, dear cousin, by the attempt of the wizard Cuthbert to slay you. I heard that upon the rack of pain, shortly after you had his arms torn from their sockets, that he cried out my name as the one who had paid him. Dear cousin, it has injured me grievously to hear that you believed him. You know my loyalty to you is undying. Even though you took the hand of fair Ewin to be your queen, though I loved her dearly, still it is wrong to think I would wish harm upon you. That wretch Cuthbert must have forged my signature to the letter you found in his chambers. As for the satchel of gold bearing my mark, I know not how it came to be in Cuthbert's possession. I believe some dark enemy must have planted it to cast blame upon me for such a dastardly crime. Please trust me on this. I was sorely grieved to hear that you barons had sent out to arrest me. I am deeply hurt to hear it being said that I fled like a coward up into the VARN hills to escape your justice. I was merely going on a hunting expedition, dear cousin. An innocent trip to escape the heat of summer, accompanied by a few trusted servants. The fact that I took my family jewels with me was simply to keep them safe. For there is always the problem of thievery on the part of servants while the master is away. How I came into this strange land is still somewhat of a mystery to me. While wandering in the hills, I and my few retainers stumbled into a narrow pass on the borders of your realm. As we walked into the pass, a strange glowing light engulfed us for a moment. We turned to go back from where we came, but an invisible barrier was now in place. Try as we might, we could not penetrate it. So we continued on, passing out of the hills, down into a strange uncharted land. All seemed different in this new place. The sun is not like the red of our lands, but rather has a strange yellow hue. It seems that objects do not fall quite as fast when dropped, and the air holds more moisture to it. This is Morglin Ironfist going through a portal that led from the land of VARN into the land of Enroth. We wandered for many days and found no trace of pillars marking boundaries, no rulers, or any hint of kings and laws. All was wilderness, untamed and untouched by the hands of thinking beings. Of course, my dear cousin, I immediately realized that here was an opportunity to extend your realm and win for you greater honors and treasure. Thus did I erect boundary markers and raise up your banner to lay claim to, in your name, all the lands as far as my eyes could see. Please accept this as a sign of my fealty and family loyalty, and ignore any disparaging rumors about earlier events. My dear cousin and liege lord, after wandering for many days, I bethought it appropriate to try and return through the gate and inform you of my great discoveries in your name. I wish to bring word of my discoveries to you personally, before the barons try to do so first. But, my lord, the mysterious gate was still closed, and I could not pass through it. Thus did I erect a pillar next to it, and shall place there this letter, and those that I will write afterwards, to show my service to you in extending your realms. I shall keep you informed of my progress and service to you, and your undying glory. Please extend as well my most humble respects to the fair, gentle, and lovely Queen Ewine. Tell her that out of my loyalty to you, I think of her each morning and night, and wish her happily at your side. Loyally, Ironfist. 4th day of the month of the Dragonfly, Common Year 632. My dear Lord King Ragnar, it has been more than a month since my last missive was sent up to where the mysterious gate was located. There my most trusted servant waits in hope that the barrier preventing our return dissipates and he may deliver my pronouncements of fidelity and news of your growing estates here personally. I have moved my headquarters a dozen leagues down out of the hills and into a fair valley filled with game, great trees, and swift-running streams. It is a curious place, and at first I thought the land were devoid of all those who walk upright and can speak. For days I pondered what next to do. I wondered if all around me was thus. And then on the 7th day after arriving in the valley, a wandering peasant came through the woods, and I thought, here at last is your first new minion. I tried to put him to work chopping down trees so that he might plant grain to take my bread for me, but he was recalcitrant, as are most peasants. Finally, I deemed it necessary to lower myself to speak to him at length. We had here a great problem. My retainers, being men of arms, of course could not be asked to work, and our one peasant refused to labor. Though tempted to kill him, I realized we would starve next winter, if there is a winter here, if we did not reason with him. I asked him where were the people and creatures I needed to serve me. He bargained long and hard for the secret, something I found distasteful. Finally, I agreed to pay him if he would tell me the secrets of this place, and reveal a way to bring in those who would serve me. He then gave me this cryptic answer. If you build it, they will come. I was angry at such a stupid saying, and prepared to slay him, and then he explained. The following day I set the peasant and my men to building huts. It took some reasoning with my men to convince them that this was not peasant labor, but rather was the simple building of shelters in the same way that they would prepare an encampment. Even with this logical explanation, many were reluctant to work beneath their station. I was forced at last to bribe them with some of my jewels to convince them of the dignity of what they had to do. Lo and behold, on the morning after the huts were completed, I awoke to find a deputation of peasants outside my tent, begging me for the right to occupy the homes that had been created. I thought long and hard upon this before lowering myself to speak to them. I explained to them that by living upon the land I had claimed, and living in the huts I had made for them, they owed me the obligation of their liege lord. They were to cultivate the ground, offer a tithe to me, and that the men were to serve in time of war. In exchange, I would offer them the protection of my sword. They willingly accepted. Marks were made upon a piece of parchment, and the agreement was struck. The peasants moved in that same day and began to work. This set my mind to thinking, and I asked the crafty peasant for more advice. Heeding him, the next day I set my men to building huts of straw and huts of sticks. This cost me more money in payments, but that was offset in a small amount when I demanded of the peasants and received rent payments, even if it was but a few coppers. The huts of straw and sticks were finally completed, and to my utter amazement, goblins and orcs appeared from out of the woods, willing to serve me in exchange for the places of dwelling. We struck the same agreement as I had made with the peasants. Frankly, my lord cousin, these seem to be foolish creatures who are in need of a leader and hero to provide them with places to live. They seem not self-reliant at all, but expect some form of liege to provide everything for them. I heard them exclaim that such a thing was their right, and their ruler should provide to them all things. I gladly gave it to them and easily convinced them that I am their all-knowing leader. Now they are mine to use as I see fit, for they are fearful of losing what I have given them. Thus, I have started the building of a town, which we are considering naming after you. My only fear is that it will not become great enough to be worthy of the name. To ensure you would not lose faith, we have chosen our family name, so that, should the town fail, all will think it was named for your humble servant. It costs much to begin, but even now a small but steady amount of money is starting to trickle back. For these creatures to have pieces of copper in their pockets, though I wonder who out there is minting the coins. I will keep building all sorts of structures, and I will see what else will come. Please extend to Lady Ewin my warmest thoughts and tell her I have many fond memories of times I spent with her. She'll know what I mean. Now, this is an interesting point. He says that they named the town after their family name, which is Ironfist. So that is how the town of Ironfist became existing. So we will see that town later on in Might and Magic 6, the Native Heaven. But anyway, let's go to the next letter. 18th day of the month of the Unicorn, common year 633. Dear Cousin Ragnar, it has been nearly a year since my last missive to you, but I have been preoccupied with many things. I should add that my messenger reports that the gate is still barred shut and no one may pass it. After some months he felt it necessary to cease his vigil. He told me as well that the last 2 letters I left for you atop the boundary pillar I erected have not been taken, but I shall continue to write you nevertheless. Through my leadership and strength, much has changed in this valley, which I now control and have named the Valley of Ragnar in your honor. Where once forest stood, now there is a thriving town. I continued to build things, using all my wealth, but I know, my lord, that you will be pleased with what I have done to honor you, and that when the time comes you will pay me back the difference in what I have spent here so far. A full accounting of the cost is enclosed. All income has gone to maintenance. As to the management of my barony, I felt it important to build the population of the realm first. Therefore, I set out to construct many different dwellings to bring under my banner a great host. With the building of a brick house, mighty ogres came to live in the valley. When I commanded that a bridge be placed over the river Morglin, I returned there the next day to find a troll having taken up residence beneath it. As each of these creatures came, I presented them with parchments to sign, recognizing me as their liege, which they gladly did. Note, River Morglin, named after Morglin Ironfist, the person who wrote the letters here. Wolves are always worthy allies, and they can scent trouble from afar, therefore I commanded that dens be made. The following day massive intelligent beasts came out of the woods and offered into me their service. Next I sought men of skill. The peasants had spoken of wizards and such many times. With the digging of a well to provide cooling spring water for the tempering of steel, a blacksmith and then a rank of pikemen came into my service. A field was then cleared and the grass cut short. Target butts were set up and archers appeared to offer their services. A tavern near the bridge was built, and from within its rooms, swordsmen drink their fill and have fun bloodying each other as they argue about dice and mace. There are more plans afoot here as well, my lord. Even now I am building a most curious structure. Tiny houses set up in the trees to rally the fairy sprites to my side. Cottages near the side of the mountains are being hewn of stone, so that dwarves will serve me, while in the woods I have been advised to set up targets so that elven archers may come to try their spot. Once the elves and dwarves serve me, I am told that they will help to make such things as great stone circles for the pleasure of druids, fenced meadows for unicorns, and fearful red towers for the mighty phoenix. Already I have created a dwelling place for users of magic, and one is now in my service. He is expensive though, my lord, and to master his spells is a costly process. My funds have run short and I have made the decision to let the arcane arts of magic wait. For the price of but one spell I can marshal a host of peasants. I remember as well the fool Guthbert, your court magician. He wasn't worth very much if memory served me well. Speaking of money, I should point out to you that the tens of thousands in gold that I have spent so far in this venture, which was started solely to glorify your name. My pockets are not bottomless, cousin, and though my servants now bring in some small income, still it is not enough. Therefore, if you read this letter, I would ask of you to send more money to me, for after all, this has become quite an expensive proposition. Your flag does not fly over this realm, cousin, without incurring some obligation in return. Oh yes, I should add that I did erect a modest dwelling place for myself, which I call Morglin's Keep. I have tastefully appointed it as befitting the honor of one of your servants. Once the spring planting has been finished, I plan to take part of my new host and go adventuring, for I am told that this land is vast and that if one looks carefully, there are riches to be found and glory to be won. Of course, my lord, whatever I find shall be for the glory of your name. Do send my best to Lady Ewine. So I think Morglin's Keep mentioned here is actually something that will be known as Castle Ironfist. Maybe the main building of Castle Ironfist. 29th day of the month of the Aardvark, common year 635. Cousin, it has been more than 2 years since I sent my last missive up into the hills to be placed near the gate where I first came through into this world. I am informed that my previous letters are gone, but that no reply was waiting. I am not sure if you or a servant of yours found the gate and came through, or if thieves violated the boundary pillar placed there. I embarked on my expedition to explore new lands and have endured 2 long and hard years of campaigning. At first, all was uneventful, though by careful looking I found occasional deposits of rare metals, burial mounds containing treasures, and other such things. I also met strange and terrible creatures. Near an ancient graveyard I did battle with ghosts. I met wandering beasts with fearsome skills and bested them in single combat to the glory of my name. After wandering for many weeks, I came at last upon another town. As I approached it, the inhabitants barred the gates. They then climbed upon the battlements and made rude gestures. They made strange noises while sticking out their tongues and said many coarse and vulgar things about your lineage. Now, stop watching this right now and go to the link I have in the description and on screen, because this is exactly perfect of a visualization of what happened there. I will wait here until you watch the video.